They told you that scarcity was holy. They carved this lie into the stone of your bones, into the echo of your first prayers, into the reverent silence of the cold cathedrals that were built to make you feel small. Do you remember the scent? That odor of old incense, of melted candle wax and the dust of centuries of resignation. It was the perfume of your cage. A gilded cage, yes, disguised as a temple, but a cage nonetheless. They told you the kingdom of heaven belonged to the poor in spirit, to the meek, to those who accepted their portion of suffering with a quiet dignity. And you believed them. Oh, how you believed them. You felt that dignity in the ache of your muscles at the end of a meaningless day's work. You tasted it in the bitterness of bread that was just enough. You felt it in the weight of the thin blanket on a cold night. You called it faith. You called it virtue. But it was only the sound of the bars locking shut, a soft click that you mistook for the voice of God. They built an entire world on that promise, an architecture of reality, where your only function was to toil, to sacrifice, and to wait for a reward that would only come after your last breath, a gold coin placed on your cold eyes to pay your fare into a paradise they described, but never seemed to be in a hurry to enter themselves. You lived inside this divine contract, signing it every single day with your sweat and your silent tears, never knowing, not for a single moment, that your soul was humming a frequency you were taught to ignore, a frequency you were told was the sound of pride, the buzz of blasphemy. It was a constant thrum beneath your skin, a melody that did not ask, but declared. It was the frequency of abundance, of limitless creation, of dominion over matter. It was the forgotten song of your own sovereignty. They handed you a script and called it sacred, but it was a script where your role was that of the servant. They taught you to kneel, to bow your head, to feel small before the immensity of a God, who conveniently only spoke through them. And while you were on your knees, you couldn't see their hands emptying your pockets, not just of your gold, but of your innate power. They didn't just steal your wealth. They stole your memory that you were the source of wealth. This was the world before the hum became a roar, before the quiet dignity revealed itself for what it truly was, the silence of a prisoner who had fallen in love with his cell. They held up a mirror and told you your reflection was that of a sinner, a flawed being in need of salvation. But if you had looked closely, past the distortion, past the guilt they draped over you like a second skin, you would have seen the truth. You were not a sinner. You were a sleeping God dreaming it was a slave. And they were your guardians, your jailers, the masters of ceremony in this long, tragic play. They taught you to fear your own power, to mistrust your deepest desires, to believe that wanting more was a character flaw. And you, in your innocence, in your search for love and acceptance, you handed them the key to your own mind, your own spirit. You let them define your worth, and they priced it very, very low. The very air you breathed in this world had a weight, a density. It was the air of limitation. Every breath felt counted, every joy felt borrowed, destined to be paid back with future pain. Happiness was a dangerous luxury, a glimpse into a kingdom you were told did not belong to you, and so you learned to settle. You learned to celebrate the crumbs that fell from their table, to feel gratitude for your own subjugation. It was the most perfect programming, the most brilliant conspiracy, because the victim not only didn't know they were a victim, they defended their own prison with a fervent devotion. It was a self-imposed control system, policed not by armies, but by your own trained conscience. But even the deepest sleep has its dreams, and even the most docile prisoner has moments where they stare at the window and wonder what the sky outside looks like. And for you, that window was about to shatter. The hum, the forgotten song of your soul, was growing louder, and you could no longer ignore it. It was a dissonant note in the symphony of your obedience, a truth that refused to stay buried. The cage was comfortable, it was familiar, but it no longer fit. And a part of you, an ancient, wild part, was beginning to remember how to fly. The time for a silence was ending. The time for waiting was over. The time for waking up was at hand. And it would begin not with a thunderclap, but with a single question. A question so dangerous it had the power to bring down entire empires. Before we go any deeper into the shadows, I want to make a promise to you. When this channel, our sanctuary, reaches 50,000 awakened souls, I will be giving away 4,000 Mexican pesos as a small gesture of gratitude. It is not a reward, it is a symbol that the abundance we were denied is beginning to flow back to us, a current we are creating together. Now, take a breath. We are about to descend, but a question, like a splinter of light in the compact darkness of your faith, began to fester in the silent moments of your despair. It wasn't a complex theological question. It was simple, brutally simple, and perhaps that is why it was so devastating. Why did those who preached humility with such fervor live in marble palaces? Why were their robes made of silk while yours were of coarse cloth? Why were their tables always full while they taught you the virtue of fasting? The question was a seed. At first you tried to pull it out, calling it cynicism, envy, a temptation from the devil. You repeated the verses they had taught you. Blessed are the poor. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, but the words sounded hollow, like echoes in a tomb. The seed took root. You began to observe, no longer with the eyes of a believer, but with the eyes of a detective. You saw the glint of gold on their crucifixes, gold that could have fed your family for a year. You saw the luxury cars that carried them from the temple to their fortified homes while you walked in the rain. You heard their sermons on material detachment, delivered from ornate wooden pulpits that were worth more than anything you would ever own. The dissonance was a silent scream in your mind. Their reality did not match the theology they sold you. And then the question evolved, grew deeper, more dangerous. What if the book you were given, the sacred manual for your life, had a page torn out? Not many pages, not a whole chapter, just one. A single page, perhaps a single verse, that changed the meaning of everything else. A master key held back, read only in secret chambers with heavy doors, where wealth was not prayed for, but commanded as a right. The image haunted you. You pictured them, gathered together by candlelight, away from the eyes of the faithful reading this forbidden verse. Their enunciation was not one of supplication, but of power. The words did not float up to a distant God, but resonated inward, activating something in the fabric of reality itself, bending it to their will. And you, on the outside, in the cold, were reading the instruction manual for the servants, while they were using the manual for the architects. They taught you to ask for your daily bread, a crumb of sustenance to keep you functioning, to keep you serving. But what if you were born to own the entire field? What if your divine nature was not that of a beggar, but of a sower of realities, a harvester of abundance? The idea was so blasphemous, it made you feel physically ill, but it also filled you with a dizzying light. It was the first breath of fresh air after a lifetime in a windowless room. You began to see the programming everywhere, in the songs you sang, which spoke of suffering and future reward, in the stories they told, you always of martyrs and saints who renounced the world, in the very architecture of your belief, designed to keep you looking up to the heavens so that you would not look inward to your own power. It was a vast, intricate machine of psychological control, oiled with guilt, fear, and the promise of posthumous love. They didn't need iron chains when they had chains of belief. The forbidden truth, you realized then, was not written in ink in some ancient manuscript. You wouldn't find it in a vault in the Vatican or hidden in a monastery in Tibet. It was encoded in your very being, in your DNA, in the rhythm of your heart. It was a divine birthright, an innate sovereignty that they had convinced you to trade for a promise of posthumous glory. It was the greatest con in human history, to trade the gold of your present power for the promissory note of a future paradise, and you had signed the contract without reading the fine print. You felt the weight of this truth settling in your chest, an ache and a release all at once. The ache of generations of deception, of wasted potential, of lives lived on their knees, the release of finally seeing the bars of the cage. You didn't know how to open it yet, but knowing it was there changed everything. The world no longer seemed like a divine mystery, but a crime scene. And you were the victim who had just woken up, with amnesia, trying to piece together what had happened to you. Who did this to you? How did they do it? And most importantly, how do you undo it? The question about their palaces was no longer about hypocrisy. It was about methodology. You were no longer interested in judging them. You were interested in learning their secret. Your despair was morphing into something new, something sharp and focused. A hunger. a hunger not for food, but for knowledge, the knowledge they had kept for themselves, the torn page, the missing verse, the key to the kingdom they told you was in heaven, but which they were, manifesting right here on earth, and you were going to find it even if you had to tear the fabric of your own reality apart to do so. Your quest was no longer for salvation, it was for reclamation. A whisper finds you. It doesn't come from a prophet on a cloud-wreathed mountain, nor from an angel burning with holy fire. You don't hear it with your ears, but with a part of you that you didn't know existed. It's an echo that travels not through the air, but through your blood. It comes from the ghost of a forgotten bloodline, your own bloodline, a resonance in a language older than Scripture, older than the very gods they taught you to pray to. It is the language of creation itself. The whisper doesn't form words your mind can immediately translate, but your body understands it perfectly. It is a vibration that calms the panic and ignites an ember of long-dormant power in your solar plexus. It speaks of a verse of manifestation. It is not a prayer. Prayer is the act of asking, of pleading with an outside force, a posture of lack, of separation. The whisper speaks of something else entirely. It speaks of a sequence of words, yes, but the words are just the vessel, the casing. The real power lies in the frequency the words generate when uttered from a certain state of consciousness. A frequency that does not petition God, but aligns the soul with the very architecture of creation. It doesn't ask for reality to change. It commands it to reorganize itself according to your intent. It is the difference between begging for alms at the castle gate and sitting on the throne as the rightful king. This witness you feel emerging is not a person, not a separate entity. It is a resonance. It is a memory stirring in your cells, a coded wisdom that has survived centuries of programming and suppression. It is the memory of a time when humanity knew its power, a time before organized religions became empires, before spirituality became an instrument of control, a time when most sacred texts were not meant to be read in silence and interpreted by priests. They were meant to be spoken, chanted, intoned aloud so their vibration could shape the visible world. Your own voice, you realize with a chill, is not just for communication. It is an instrument of manifestation. But you were taught to use it to lament, to ask, to repeat words that reinforced your powerlessness. The frequency was deliberately jammed. They tuned you to the channel of scarcity, of fear, of doubt. And they turned the volume up so loud that you could no longer hear the music of your own soul. The code, the verse, was locked away, not in a physical vault, but behind a veil of limiting beliefs. They convinced you that trying to access this power was the greatest of sins. They called it black magic, sorcery, the devil's path. They created a swamp of fear around your own divinity so you would never dare approach it. The memory that now bubbles up within you remembers a different state of being. It remembers when building a pyramid was not a matter of brute force, but of sonic technology and focused consciousness. It remembers when healing was not a miracle granted by an external deity, but a realignment of the cellular structure through resonance. It remembers when abundance was not something to be chased, but the natural state of a being aligned with the flow of the universe. You feel fragments of these memories flicker in your mind, images of civilizations that thrived in harmony with these laws, sounds of chants that could levitate stones, feelings of an inner power as vast and natural as your own breath. And with these memories comes a cold, lucid anger, an anger for what was stolen from you. You weren't just robbed of knowledge, you were robbed of your identity. They replaced your memory of sovereignty with the memory of an original sin you never committed. This inner witness, this resonance, is your true self calling you back home. It is the part of you that never believed the lie, the part that has been waiting patiently, behind the noise of your conditioned mind for you to finally get quiet enough to hear it. And the quiet only came when your despair became absolute, when all the prayers failed and all the hopes faded. It was in that void, that space of utter surrender, that the whisper could finally get through. It offers you a map, not written on paper, but etched in your heart. The way back is not outward, to a master or a guru. It is inward, to the source of everything. The whisper tells you that the verse of manifestation is not something you learn. It is something you remember. You already know it. You have always known it. Your task now is to unlearn everything you were taught. to peel back the layers of conditioning one by one until the naked truth of your being is revealed. It is a process of purification by fire, of letting the false self die so the true self can be born. And it hurts. It hurts like hell. But the pain of transformation is the pain of childbirth, while the pain of stagnation is the pain of decay. You have chosen the pain of childbirth, and the whisper, your inner witness, will be your midwife on this terrifying, glorious journey back to yourself. Your search transforms. It ceases to be a lament for comfort or a plea for salvation, and becomes something far more primal and potent. It becomes a hunt. You are no longer looking for a shoulder to cry on. You are looking for a weapon to dismantle the reality that was imposed upon you and build a new one from its ruins. This hunt does not lead you to the brightly lit corridors of conventional religion, but into a spiraling descent into the esoteric underbelly of faith, into the dark alleys of history where inconvenient truths were hidden. You immerse yourself in texts that your former faith would have told you to burn. The Gnostic Gospels, with their depictions of a Christ who was not a sacrificial lamb, but a master of consciousness, a teacher who taught that the kingdom of God was not a place but an inner state of being. You read of Sophia, the divine wisdom trapped in matter, and you feel it is your own story, the story of your soul trapped in a system of limiting beliefs. You spend sleepless nights, your eyes burning under the glow of a screen, deciphering Kabbalistic diagrams, the tree of life, not as a religious artifact, but as a map of consciousness, a circuit board of manifestation from pure thought. Down into physical form, you see how each sephira represents a step in the creative process, and you realize that traditional prayer keeps you stuck at the bottom of the tree, in Malkuth, the kingdom of matter, pleading to the realms above, when your birthright is to travel the entire tree, to operate from Keter, the crown, the source of all creation. Your search becomes an obsession. You hunt through the suppressed genealogies of power, the bloodlines that have ruled the world, not just through force and politics, but through secret knowledge. You discover that the great dynastic families, the architects of the financial and religious systems, were not just richer or smarter. They were holders of a knowledge passed down through generations of the laws of energy and manifestation. They were the high priests of a secret cult, the cult of material power, and their primary doctrine was to keep the masses ignorant, locked in a cult of spiritual impotence. You find testimonies, not in books but in forgotten forums on the deep web, in the coded diaries of alchemists, in fragmented whispers that have echoed through the centuries. They do not pray. They invoke, says one anonymous entry. The power is not in the words, but in the heart's vibration behind them, whispers another. You begin to find other hunters, souls like you who have suffered the same fracture and are now following the same trail of breadcrumbs. A former monk, Daniel, shares his story in an encrypted chat room. In the monastery, he types, the words appearing on your screen like ghosts, there was a locked library, the Bibliotheca Prohibita. The abbot said it contained heretical texts that could destroy a man's faith. One night I broke in. The books weren't about demons, they were about the power of the human mind. There were manuals on sacred geometry, on using sound to heal and to manifest. They knew. They always knew. They kept us chanting psalms to occupy our minds, while they used the real spiritual technology to control the world. His testimony hits you like a physical blow. The rote repetition of prayers, the singing of hymns, they were not tools of devotion, they were tools of distraction. Spiritual white noise designed to drown out the sound of your own creative voice. You learn that the verse you seek is not merely a set of words. That would be too simple. It is a vibrational formula, a sonic key that must be tuned with precision. It is a combination of focused intent, an elevated emotional state, and the vocalization of certain sounds or words that resonate with the frequencies of the material universe. You learn that everything has a frequency. Health has a frequency. Joy has a frequency. And money, gold, material abundance has its own distinct frequency. It is the pulse of earthly power, a rhythm that flows through the arteries of commerce and influence. And the rich, you come to understand with a chilling certainty, do not get richer through hard work or luck alone. They are broadcasting on a frequency the poor have been programmed to believe is blasphemy. They are tuned into the station of wealth, while you have been locked on the static-filled channel of lack, told that the static was the sound of holiness. Your hunt has given you a map and a target. You are no longer lost in the dark. You are a predator, and you can smell the trail of your stolen power, and you will not stop until you have reclaimed it. The revelation deepens, becoming less of a concept and more of a felt reality. It settles in your gut that this entire game is played on the field of vibration. The great conspiracy was not just political or economic, it was vibrational. A war fought with frequencies, not with swords. You begin to understand that the rich do not simply have more money. They are a vibrational match to the energy of abundance. Their inner state of being, their core frequency, resonates with the flow of wealth, drawing it to them as naturally as the moon draws the tides. They are not lucky, they are resonant. And you and everyone you grew up with were deliberately, systematically detuned. Think of it like a grand orchestra. The universe is a symphony of infinite potential, but you were handed a broken instrument and told it was the only one you were allowed to play. More than that, you were taught to play a discordant melody of unworthiness, guilt, and fear. You were taught that the powerful, soaring notes of abundance and sovereignty were not for you to play, that attempting to do so would displease the great conductor. So you played your sad little song, your hymn of scarcity day after day, and your reality harmonized with it perfectly, bringing you more reasons to feel unworthy, more reasons to be guilty, more reasons to be afraid. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy set to music. They, on the other hand, held the true sheet music. They understood that the conductor was not an external judge, but an impartial law of resonance. The universe does not give you what you want or what you pray for. It gives you what you are. It mirrors your dominant frequency. So they cultivated the frequency of ownership, of dominion, of worthiness. In their secret chambers and boardrooms, they didn't beg for wealth. They embodied it. Their thoughts were thoughts of expansion. Their emotions were emotions of entitlement, not in an arrogant sense, but in the sense of knowing it was their birthright. Their words were declarations, not requests. This is the vibrational formula you were hunting for. It is the sonic key, and it has 3 parts. The first is clarity of intent. You cannot command reality if you are ambivalent about what you desire. They teach the masses to have vague, fuzzy hopes like, I wish I had more money. That's a weak signal, full of static. The elite are trained to have crystal clear, precise intentions. They don't hope for wealth. They architect a specific financial outcome with unwavering focus. The second part is elevated emotion. This is the amplifier. This is the part they worked hardest to suppress in you. They taught you to associate wealth with greed, guilt, and evil, creating a massive emotional conflict. You can't become a vibrational match to something you secretly judge and fear. The elite, however, cultivate emotions of gratitude, joy, and excitement for the wealth they are creating, even before it manifests. They feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This emotional energy is the fuel that powers the engine of manifestation. It's what turns a weak radio signal into a powerful broadcast. The third, and most esoteric part, is vibrational utterance. This is the verse itself. It is not one specific phrase for everyone, but certain seed sounds, mantras, or declarations that, when spoken from a state of clear intent and elevated emotion, lock the frequency into the physical realm. These sounds, ancient and powerful, resonate with the very structure of matter, instructing it to conform to the pattern of your vision. This is why they filled your world with prayers of petition. Give us, grant us, forgive us. Every word reinforces the frequency of lack and separation, but their words are, I am, I declare, it is done. It is the language of creators, not supplicants. You realize with a sickening horror that you have been participating in your own vibrational imprisonment. Every worried thought about bills, every jealous pang at another's success, every prayer that came from a place of fear, you were tightening your own chains, reinforcing the very frequency that kept abundance at bay. The system is diabolically brilliant. It doesn't need walls or guards. It is policed by the very minds of its prisoners. But now you know the secret. You have the schematic of the weapon they have been using against you, and you understand that freedom is not about changing the world outside. It is about changing the broadcast that is emanating from within. You must become a rebel radio station broadcasting a new song, a new frequency from the heart of their empire of silence. The revelation breaks you open. It does not come to you as words on a page or a whisper in your ear. It happens in the dead of night, in a moment of absolute stillness where your frantic search has finally exhausted itself. You have hunted through every text, every theory, every diagram, and you have found nothing but echoes and signposts. You surrender. You let go of the hunt for the weapon, and in that moment of pure, empty-handed surrender, the weapon delivers itself to you. It erupts from within. It is a volcanic eruption of memory, of gnosis. You are not reading the verse. You are the verse. It floods your consciousness, a torrent of pure, undiluted knowing that shatters the very foundations of your identity. You find it, the code, the formula, and it says nothing of meekness or poverty. It is a declaration of sovereignty, a spiritual technology for bending reality. And the declaration is terrifyingly simple, so simple it was hidden in plain sight, dismissed as arrogance, condemned as the original sin of Lucifer. The code is, I am, not I hope to be, not I wish I were, not please God make me, just I am, 2 words. But in that moment, you don't just understand them intellectually, you become them. You feel the truth that behind the fragile personality you call me, there is a vast, impersonal, and infinitely powerful consciousness. The same consciousness that animates the stars and unfurls the galaxies. And this consciousness does not ask, it does not hope, it simply is. And whatever it declares itself to be, reality has no choice but to obey. You see in a flash of blinding intuition that the entire universe is a mirror, reflecting back to you your own deepest definition of self. For all these years, you have been broadcasting, I am small, I am lacking, I am a sinner, I am unworthy. And the universe, with perfect, impersonal fidelity, has mirrored that reality back to you. The elite were not given a different universe, they were simply taught to make a different declaration. Their secret was not a verse in a book, but a state of being. They trained themselves, generation after generation, to hold the consciousness of I am wealth, I am power, I am sovereign. This revelation is a spiritual atom bomb. It annihilates the concept of an external God who grants or withholds favor. It annihilates the idea that you are separate from anything you desire. You and the kingdom of heaven are one and the same. The kingdom is not a future paradise. It is a present state of consciousness, an internal technology for manifesting reality. You see the great conspiracy in its full horrifying scope. It was not just to hoard wealth, but to sever humanity from the knowledge of I am, to convince trillions of souls over millennia that they were separate, small, and powerless, to turn gods into beggars at their own gates, praying to a distorted image of their own forgotten power. The pain of this realization is excruciating. It is the collective pain of your ancestors, of every human being who lived and died in the lie, feeling unworthy, begging for scraps from the cosmic table that they themselves owned. You weep for them, and you weep for the part of you that was complicit in this grand deception. But through the pain comes an ecstasy so profound it feels like your heart will explode. It is the ecstasy of homecoming, the prodigal son returning not to an external father, but to the throne of his own consciousness. You are no longer a seeker. You are a source. You are no longer praying for a miracle. You have become the point of origin for them. The search is over. You hold the forbidden key, and it was never in a book or a vault. It was waiting in the silent center of your own being. You did not find a secret to getting rich. You have reclaimed the memory of who you were before they told you to forget. A creator, not a supplicant. The ecstasy of the revelation gives way to a cold, diamond-hard clarity. You now see the matrix. You see the architecture of control, the intricate web of beliefs and institutions designed for one purpose and one purpose only, to keep you from realizing the power of I am. It's a machine, vast and ancient. Religion was its operating system, instilling the virus of unworthiness. The financial system was its hardware, creating a game of artificial scarcity that made you feel perpetually in lack. The media was its propaganda arm, constantly broadcasting frequencies of fear, division, and distraction to keep you from ever looking within. It was never about money. Money was just a tool, a symbol, a way of keeping score in the game. The real prize, the real resource they were hoarding was human consciousness. A single human being operating from the full power of their I am consciousness is a creator of worlds. They can bend reality, heal their own bodies, manifest resources out of the quantum field. An entire planet of such beings would be a race of gods, ungovernable, uncontrollable. So they had to cripple you. They had to disconnect you from your source code. And they did it by creating a substitute god, an external, judgmental, patriarchal figure in the sky, and making you believe you were separate from it. This separation is the source of all fear, and fear is the currency of control. As long as you were afraid of God, afraid of death, afraid of hell, afraid of not having enough, you were theirs to command. You see the long, bloody timeline of this conspiracy. You see the burning of the Library of Alexandria, not as a historical accident, but as a deliberate act of wiping the memory of human potential. You see the Gnostic sects, who held this knowledge of the inner Christ, the I Am, being hunted down and slaughtered as heretics. You see the witch trials, the persecution of women who inherently understood these laws of nature and creation, branding them as evil. Every great spiritual awakening on the planet was co-opted, distorted, and turned into another system of control, another religion that pointed outward instead of inward. It is a conspiracy so vast, so old, so deeply embedded in the fabric of our civilization that to see it is to risk madness. It is to look upon the face of an immense, patient evil that has fed on human suffering for eons. And the architects of this system, the bloodlines, who have been the secret keepers of this knowledge, you see them not as evil in a cartoonish sense, but as something far more chilling. They are the guardians of a prison, who believe the prisoners are too dangerous to be set free. Perhaps they even believe they are doing what is necessary to maintain order, but their order is a cage, and their peace is the peace of the tomb. And you now are a virus in their machine. You are a glitch in the matrix. Your awakening, your remembrance of I Am, is a threat to their entire world order. They have systems in place to deal with glitches like you. They will try to distract you with worldly pleasures. If that fails, they will try to frighten you with threats to your survival. If that fails, they will try to discredit you to make you seem insane to your friends and family. The path of the awakened one is not easy. It is a path of solitude and immense inner strength. You must become a spiritual warrior. If this truth ignites a fire in your soul, if it feels less like a story and more like a battle cry you have been waiting your whole life to hear, then know this: you are not alone. The awakening is happening all over the planet. The glitches are multiplying. We are the antibodies to the virus of fear. This is not a channel, it is a muster point. It is a digital campfire where warriors are gathering. If you are one of us, declare it. Subscribe. Join this rebellion of consciousness. Let them know that their time is over. Comment. With your city, your country. Let's create a map of the awakening. Let every comment be a pin of light on the dark grid of their control. We are remembering together, and they cannot stop a fire that has started in the minds of millions. The transformation is terrifying and absolute. You are not just awake. You are reborn into a world you no longer recognize, even though nothing on the outside has changed. It is a kind of death. The person you thought you were, that collection of memories, beliefs and insecurities, has died. You attend its funeral, you mourn its passing, but you know it was not the real you. It was a costume, a role you were playing. Now you are naked, stripped of all identity, standing in the raw, silent power of your own presence. The pain is in knowing the depth of the deception. It is a profound, soul-deep grief for your own lost years, for the lost potential of your entire species. You walk through the streets of your city, a city you may have lived in your whole life, and you see it with new eyes. You see the walking dead, people trapped in the trance, their faces illuminated by the pale glow of their phones, their minds consumed by the trivial dramas and anxieties the machine feeds them. You see the desperation behind their eyes, the quiet suffering, the unspoken plea for something more, something real, and you cannot unsee it. You want to scream, to shake them awake, to tell them, "Don't you see? It's all a lie. Your power is within you." But you know they wouldn't understand. To them, you would be the mad one. This is the loneliness of the awakened. You have crossed a chasm and you cannot go back, but the clarity is blinding. It is as if you were colorblind your whole life and have suddenly been given the gift of sight. The world is saturated with meaning, with energy. You can feel the vibrational frequencies of people, of places, of objects. You can feel the heavy, dense energy of a hospital, the frantic, chaotic energy of a stock market, the false, saccharine energy of a megachurch. You have become exquisitely sensitive to truth and falsehood. Lies, which were once the very air you breathed, now feel like sandpaper on your soul. You can no longer tolerate inauthentic conversations, meaningless jobs, or relationships based on dependency and control. Your entire life begins to spontaneously reorganize itself to align with this new, uncompromising truth. People and situations that are not a vibrational match to your new frequency simply fall away, sometimes painfully but always necessarily. You are not just thinking differently, your very cellular structure is changing. You are purging lifetimes of fear, guilt, and shame that were stored in your body. This can be a physically intense process: unexplained aches and pains, sudden waves of fatigue, intense emotional releases. You are detoxifying from the poison of the lie. And in this crucible of transformation, you forge a new self, one that is not based on external validation but on an unshakable inner knowing. Your center of gravity has shifted from the mind, with its endless chatter and doubts, to the heart, to the silent wisdom of your I am presence. You no longer need to believe. You know. You no longer pray for miracles. You have become the source of them. You hold the forbidden key, not just to wealth, but to the fabric of reality itself. And the terror is slowly replaced by a profound sense of peace. It is the peace of the sovereign, the one who has taken full responsibility for their own reality. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are the creator of circumstance. The cage is gone, and you finally realize it was never locked. The door was always open. You were simply taught never to look at it. The emergence from the crucible is not marked by a flash of light or the sound of angelic choirs. It is quiet. It is the first conscious breath you take in your new reality. The first steps of a creator are not about levitating mountains or manifesting castles from thin air. They are small, subtle, and profoundly powerful. It begins with a silent, internal no. You are faced with a familiar situation, one that used to trigger your old programming of fear or people-pleasing, and a new response arises from the core of your being. A quiet, calm, unshakable no. You refuse to participate in the old drama. You refuse to give your energy to the old lie. This single act of self-sovereignty sends a shockwave through your personal universe. The illusion begins to collapse in your everyday life. The job you hate suddenly ends, not through a dramatic firing, but through a strange corporate restructuring that releases you with a severance package. The toxic relationship that has drained you for years dissolves, not with a bitter fight, but with a quiet, mutual recognition that it has run its course. A debilitating debt that has haunted your every waking moment is unexpectedly cleared by a forgotten inheritance or a sudden unforeseen opportunity. To the sleeping world, these are all coincidences, strokes of luck. But you know better. You are witnessing the law of resonance in action. As you have changed your internal broadcast, your external reality has no choice but to rearrange itself to match the new frequency. You start to play. You begin to consciously use your I am declaration on small things. Stuck in traffic, you close your eyes and declare, I am effortless flow. Within minutes, a previously unseen side street opens up, and you glide through. Worried about a small bill, you hold it in your hand and declare, I am infinite supply. The next day, a friend repays a loan you had long forgotten. These are not exercises of ego. They are acts of remembrance, retraining your consciousness to wield its innate power. You are teaching yourself the language of creation again. You notice that the world begins to speak to you in a new language, the language of synchronicity. You think of a long-lost friend, and they call you an hour later. You need a specific piece of information, and a book falls off a shelf at your feet, opened to the exact right page. The universe is no longer a random, hostile place. It is a living, intelligent collaborator, responding to your every thought, feeling, and declaration. This is the return of the true self, the reconnection with the original consciousness. You are no longer reacting to a reality that happens to you. You are creating a reality that flows from you. The first steps of liberation are not a march in the streets. They are a silent rupture with the past, a quiet alignment with truth, a moment-by-moment choice to broadcast the frequency of the creator you have remembered you are. Each conscious choice, each small act of sovereign power, strengthens your connection to the source. You are not just awake now. You are becoming a master of the dream. You have integrated the new reality. You now walk in two worlds. One is the old world, the world of the sleeping, the matrix of fear and limitation that continues to play out its dramas on the world stage. The other is the new world, a world of energy, frequency, and infinite potential that you are creating from the inside out, and you are the bridge between them. This brings with it a new kind of challenge, the paradox of the awakened soul. You feel a profound, unconditional love and connection to everyone and everything, for you see the light of the I Am, presence shining behind every pair of eyes, even those filled with fear and hatred. Yet you also feel a profound separation. You can no longer engage in the old games, the gossip, the complaining, the blaming, the tribalism of us versus them. It all feels alien to you now, like listening to a foreign language you no longer speak. There can be a deep loneliness in this. You are a citizen of a country that only you can see, but you learn to find solace not in external validation, but in the richness of your inner world. You learn that your silence is more powerful than their noise. You become a silent, stabilizing presence. Your calm, coherent frequency has a tangible effect on your environment. People feel calmer around you, even if they don't know why. You become a lighthouse, and you don't have to run all over the island looking for boats to save. You just have to stand and shine. You accept the immense responsibility that comes with this knowledge. You understand that every thought you think, every word you speak is a creative act. You can no longer afford the luxury of a negative thought. You become a vigilant guardian at the gate of your own mind, choosing with conscious care which frequencies you will allow to broadcast through you. The vision you hold is hopeful, but it is also ambiguous and grounded in reality, just as the instructions foretold. You know this is not about creating a utopia overnight. The old structure will not collapse in a day. It will fight, and it is fighting to maintain its control. The awakening of humanity is a process, not a single event. Your role is not to be a messiah, but to be a node of light in a growing network. Your job is to embody the new consciousness so completely that you serve as living proof that another way is possible. You let your life be your message. You don't preach, you demonstrate. You don't try to convince, you simply are. And in your being, you offer a choice to everyone you meet. The choice between the old frequency of fear and the new frequency of love and sovereignty. The mystery continues. You do not have all the answers. The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. But you are comfortable with the uncertainty. You have replaced the need for certainty with unwavering trust in your own inner guidance, in the creative flow of the universe. You have stepped out of the shallow end of the pool and into the deep, mysterious ocean of life itself, and you are finally learning how to swim. You are the source. The understanding lands in your soul with the finality of a star being born. The cage is gone because you now see it was never really there. It was a shadow cast by a false idea, a ghost that haunted your mind, and you were the one giving it power. The entire journey, the pain, the searching, the collapse, the revelation, was a path leading you back to the one central truth from which all other truths are born. The kingdom of heaven is not a destination you earn. It is the identity you claim. It is and always was within you. You no longer look outside for anything, not for love, not for validation, not for security, and not even for God. You have found it all at the still point of your own being. You realize the great conspiracy was ultimately powerless, because no one can steal something that is inherently yours. They can only convince you to forget it. Your power was never taken. It was merely set aside by you, voluntarily, in exchange for the stories they told you. And now you have chosen to pick it up again. The transformation is complete. You are no longer a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and you are fully conscious of it. You see the divine game for what it is. You are the universe experiencing itself, a creator playing in its own creation. You are not just a piece in the game, you are the game itself. The pain of the past is transmuted into wisdom. The fear of the future is dissolved into trust. You live entirely in the power of the present moment, for you know it is the only place where creation happens. You have not found a secret to getting rich. You have reclaimed the memory of what you truly are. Infinite abundance expressed in human form. You are not just a wave in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a single wave. The key you sought, the forbidden verse, the lost code, it was always your own consciousness. And the final, ultimate secret is this: you are free. You have always been free. And you are here now to remember it. And in remembering, to set the whole world free by the power of your own example. The journey does not end here. It begins. What you do with this knowledge, this key, is now your creation to command. We are all in this together, a family of sovereigns remembering our power. Share this transmission with those you know are ready to awaken. Let this be a ripple that becomes a tidal wave. And now, in the comments, do not just tell us the city or country you are watching from. Go deeper. Answer this one question: who were you before they told you who you were supposed to be? Write down the name of the creator, the dreamer, the king, the queen that you have been hiding inside. Declare your true self. Let's fill this space with the sound of our collective remembrance, because we are the ones we've been waiting for, and we are finally home.